Okay, so this is an introduction to working with our data set and taking some steps to make it easier to work with it. And then I'm going to demonstrate making an index. The first thing I'm going to do, which you can see I've already done, is I've made a copy from the content var data set. And I'm going to use that one actually for all my analyses. And the reason for that is that eventually, I want to use variables made from content analysis, and it's only the content var data set that has these variables here at the end, which are based on the qualitative questions, open-ended questions. Okay, so the first thing I did is I gave it a new name, 2.ted.content.var.dataset, and it's stored in the same place as all of our data sets here, and you can see it's numbered and it's right there. So you can come and look at the formulas I used, and you can copy parts of it if it's helpful for you. So, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the sizing of these columns. So I'm going to highlight everything in the sheet by clicking on this upper left corner, and then I'm just going to choose one of these columns and drag it in, and that's going to make them all a bit more narrow. And I'm going to go ahead and do that again. Oop, that's a little too narrow, I think. There, that's better. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to center everything. Or actually, I'm going to make it on the left, like that. Because that also will make it easier to read the starts of all the variable names. And then the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unselect everything just by clicking elsewhere in the sheet. And I'm going to drag all the way over to the end. And then these qualitative ones here, I'm hitting Control and then clicking to select multiple columns. I'm going to go ahead and make those wider again, since they have more stuff in them. I think it's nicer for them to be a little wider, like that. So now you can see that they're wider. And then once again, I'm going to click out. Every time you have something highlighted, if you were to type, it would replace some aspect of what's highlighted with your typing. So you don't want that to happen. So you don't really want to leave things highlighted. One way to do it is to click on something else. Another way is to hit the escape key, which will kind of unhighlight stuff. Okay. Okay, let me tell you what I've been working on. I've been, so I have the formulas content one here, which over here, these values are not numbers. Remember, they are formulas generating numbers by checking to see if there are certain values in the qualitative sort of extended answer questions. So I should be grabbing my variables instead from the paste values sheet here. And what I've been doing is I've been assembling variables onto this var construct sheet, which is where I'm going to build the variables I'm going to use. And I've also been using color coding here to kind of indicate what I'm using the variables for. So these yellow ones here I'm using as demographic and background attribute variables. So for instance, the subjective social class of the family growing up for each student is something that's in their background, as is their mother's education and their father's education, the size of their hometown, the size of their high school, gender, age, also their year in school. And then GPA is, I'm treating it as sort of a background attribute, or I'm not quite sure where to place it, so I put it in yellow also. And then if you look here, I have some green variables here, and these are the variables that ask about how often you are communicating with friends via different types of methods, and I'm going to use this as a measure of social capital. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an index that adds up these three variables. Okay, and it's just a simple index that's going to add them up. And I'm going to demonstrate how I do that. That's pretty easy. And you can see also the variable I'm going to use in my analysis is going to be this one called social capital, or soc.capital. So this is easy. All I'm going to do is put an equal sign here, and then I can do this one of two ways. I can either say sum and then put a parenthesis, and then I can click and drag this range like that, and then close the parenthesis and enter. The other way you could accomplish the same thing is you could say this is equal to this one plus this one plus this one. Okay, and the reason you would use that by just adding them up like that is if they didn't happen to all be in a row. You can only use this range thing when the columns are next to each other. So I could have used this if the columns weren't next to each other, but it gives this same sort of result, right? So I can take this instead and fill it down, and that's still a 15, right? And so I can double click this corner. I should be, oh no, I guess I can't. So I just have to drag it down. So I have to fill that down. Oops, went too far. Oh, I hate that. So we're slowly scrolling down so we don't go past the last row, going to about 150. You can't see that they're counting up on the side. We're almost there. There we go. There. So you can see that people range pretty widely here. We have a 7 and we have a 17. So people really differ in terms of how much they are communicating with friends using these different methods. So this is texting, this is multiple ways, and this is social media only. It would be interesting to do the contrast between some of these, because maybe some people, like this person here, doesn't contact anybody through social media only. So maybe that's a kind of a key difference. But anyways, this person is maxing them all out. Okay, I have another simple index right here. I'm interested in people, how they vary in terms of how studious they're being. So I have this variable called study, which is just going to be adding the time people are putting in class to the time that they're studying outside of class and working outside of class. So this is just going to be equal to this plus this. Okay, and so I weighted them equally. You could make an argument for maybe weighting the outside of class one more, given that there's not as much variation in how much people are putting into class. You can see there's some people putting 1s, which is kind of amazing to me, but a lot of them are 3s and 4s. I guess both of them have sort of a limited range. Anyways, I'm just going to do a simple simple index. So I'm going to fill this down. Getting close. There. I'm curious if grad students are the people that are putting more time in generally, because they probably have to. Okay, and then another variable I want to use was how much time people are putting into partying. So I would think that would be kind of like negatively related to this, but maybe not. We'll see. And then I want to explain another sort of index I want to make. And what I've done here is I've gotten these political issue questions. So they're about, let's see, gay marriage, about illegal immigrants, about abortion, business and regulation, guns and regulation, and the taco sort of bill that passed in Athens. And if we look at, let's see, where is the code book? Okay, here's the code book. If we look at it, okay, so I went ahead and put this color coding here because these questions, the different issues, the agreement and disagreement is not consistently related to people's general political dispositions. So for instance, this marriage one says, consider the following statement: couples should be allowed to marry regardless of sexual preference. Okay, and so then if people have a high value on that, they disagree with it. So that would be, in our current political world, a more conservative position. And if they strongly agree, that's a more liberal position. In contrast, this illegal immigrant one, the question is, consider the following statement: U.S.-born children of illegal immigrants should be deported. So if someone strongly agreed with that, that would be what is considered now a more conservative position, and if they strongly disagreed, that would be a more liberal position. So I went ahead and color-coded these for blue for more liberal and reddish, pinkish for more conservative when it has a high value, the variable. So what I'm going to do is make two new variables by flipping around the illegal and the business regulation one, so that all of the new variables, the higher the value, the more conservative of a position that someone is supporting. And we can see right here that this first case, right, this person is a very liberal position because they were let's see. They were disagreeing. Hold on. Okay, my mistake. I had that flipped around. This person has a very conservative position because they are disagreeing with the marriage, agreeing with the deportation, disagreeing with the abortion, agreeing with the business regulation, disagreeing with the gun regulation, and disagreeing with the Taco Bell. Okay, cool. All right, so I basically realized that I reverse the colors on this, but I'm just going to roll with it instead of changing them because that would be kind of a pain. So what I'm doing is I'm reverse coding these two blue items so that they have scores that are coherent or consistent with the scores of the red ones. So what I've done is for the illegal one, so if people are agreeing with that or strongly agreeing with it, they'd have a high score, and that would actually be a conservative position, but whatever. So what we want to do is flip that around so they get a small number. So this is basically going to end up being an index of kind of liberal political beliefs, is what we'll put over here, lib pol issues, we'll call it. Okay, and so what I did is the maximum value for this Likert scale is a 6, the minimum is a 1. So to reverse that around, what you need to do is add the observed value, the 6, to so whatever the value is. In this case, it's a 6. You add that to a -7, because that's going to result in a -1. And you multiply that by -1, it becomes a 1, because we want to turn the 6's into the 1's, the 1's into 6's, the 3's into 4's, the 2's into 5's, and the 5's into 2's. Okay, so it turns out that that works. If you don't understand exactly why, I guess you could do it by hand a little bit and you'd see that it does work, but you could also just believe me that it does. Yeah, the 3's stay 3's, never mind. Anyways, and then we need to repeat that here, so I can just copy that, paste it, but it's looking at the wrong column because it's looking at column U. We need to be looking at column V, change that to a V, enter. Now it's looking at the right place, and then I can fill that down. Zoop. That. And then here we're going to add up these red ones. Okay. So we're going to make equals this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this. Enter. So this person has a very low score, a 7. It's only one higher than the minimum for a 6-item scale. Ooh, there we go. All right, great. So now the higher the score here, the more the person tends to support liberal political issues. Ta-da.